with your permission, Bante. Enang Panchasile Samadan Venata, Siurdena Namaskara Kiana.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Saranagamenang sampunnang.
Ama bante.
Anatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Dinādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāmesu miccāchārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāme sumicchāchāra veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Savādhā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musavādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Rāmeraya majja pamādatthāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majjapamadattana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Saranena sanding panchasilan dhammang sadhukang surakitang katva appamadena sampadhethe.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Much merit, Bante. And we normally have the reading of minutes of the previous meeting, but we've decided to skip that today, postpone it for next week to conserve time for today's program. The next is a few announcements. I would like to please remind all the listeners to keep your microphones muted until the discussion time. This is being recorded and to be posted to the YouTube channel of the Servants of the Buddha and Dhamma Center if necessary. So with that, and the announcement that next week we will be hearing Mrs. Anoja Wijesekara speak on Buddhism in the Himalayas. And the following week, so that's going to be very interesting next week. And the following week, we have Dr. Samadhi Rajapaksa, who is the chairman of the National Anti-Alcohol and Tobacco Authority of this, is the authority of in this country. He will speak on religious discipline on intoxicants as taught by the Buddha. So those are the next 2 Saturdays. Now with that, I have the very pleasant task now of coming to the, task of today, which is something we have much awaited talk by Venerable Hokandara Pannavamsa Thero. So it is my privilege to make a very short introduction. Bhante, who really needs very little introduction because he's no stranger to the servants of the Buddha. But Bhante is Sri Lankan born and resident in the UK. He's currently the abbot and also the founder of Dhamma Center in Colchester in the UK. However, it is in Myanmar that I first, as far back as 2011, that I became first aware of Bhante. On a short visit I paid to the Pauk monastery where Bhante was, because he has had a very long training in Myanmar. And also, I believe he had his ordination there, but he's been, I think, from a very young age, searching. And Venerable Olande Ananda Mahathero is also a Thero who had a part to play in that journey. So anyhow, with that, we now know that Bhante is doing excellent work in promoting the practice of the Dhamma as the Buddha expounded, in that way. And so today, the topic is about the foes to the Patipada, or the enemies to that practice, the obstacles, the hindrances, which are probably, no doubt, internal as well as external. And I think we are very fortunate, Bhante, to have Bhante guide us and teach us on this. So with that introduction, and if I may say that to the servants of the Buddha, Bhante has been from a very early stage of his monkhood, he has addressed the servants of the Buddha. And I have also had the good fortune of hearing him just 2 years ago on a very important day in the calendar of the servants of the Buddha at an annual general meeting. Bhante was our invited guest speaker. And so both on the virtual platform as well as physically, Bhante has been seen and heard at the servants of the Buddha. Much merit, Bhante. And once again today, we are here now, and without much ado, let me hand over the mic, and with a humble request, Bhante, to also have a short guided meditation session prior to the talk itself. Over to you, Bhante.
Thank you so much, Professor Serenayaka, for that wonderful, what I would consider a bit too long as well, introduction. And I always get a bit nervous when Bhante Ananda is on a Zoom, because Bhante Ananda is where Bhante Ananda's meditation center is where I first started my meditation practice. So it is still a bit weird for me to be speaking Dhamma when Bhante Ananda is present. So much namaskar to you, Bhante. I hope that you're keeping well and healthy. You do look well and healthy. So before we move on to the Dhamma talk, let us sit for a few minutes of meditation, and I will guide you through a metta meditation that we can all get down to today. So let us take a deep breath in, filling up our chest, breathing out, relaxing mind and body, guiding our attention from the future and the past, from anything to do with the future and the past to this very present moment. Relaxing as you go deeper into the present, feeling at ease and bliss of being within the present. The mind free of clutter as we embrace the simplicity of this present. Allowing this bliss of the present to pervade throughout the body and the mind. As you relax each and every fiber of skin and muscle all across the body. For these few moments, allowing ourselves to feel the bliss and pleasure of relieving ourselves from all the responsibilities and duties that we might be carrying with us. And simply being in the moment. Knowing that all that arises passes without any clinging, just accepting fully whatever which is of this moment. Whatever which is of this moment. With being in the present, the mind being at ease, the body relaxed. Let this be a process, a time of healing, to recuperate our energies, to re-nourish and revitalize our minds. Being very much in the now. And allowing this presence and the mind that is present to shine brighter and brighter. And with it, our focus and attention becoming stronger and stronger. With every moment, feeling a deep sense of connectedness with the present. Let us share these vibrations of loving kindness in all directions. In all directions. in all directions. Just like the sun shines its light in all directions without any bias. Let us radiate love and kindness towards all beings. May all beings be well and happy. 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 May beings experiencing adverse experiences in life issues with health, sickness, pain, ailments, regardless, may they be touched by these vibrations that we share. May they all be well and happy. Well and happy. Well and happy. Well and happy. May beings living near and far those facing any form of insecurity in life, whether it be physical or mental, regardless. May these vibrations of loving kindness encourage strength in every way. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Gently, gently. Guiding our attention back to the breath as we take a deep breath in, breathing out, relax. Deep breath in, sharing in the wholesome vibrations of everyone across the world. Welcoming blessings of all sorts. And breathing out any negativity, any stress, any anxiety. Breathing out, and as you do, feeling lighter within the present. Deep breath in again. Breathing in all that is good and wholesome. Breathing out, relaxing as you allow all the residue of negativity out from the mind and body. Let us take another deep breath in. And as we breathe out, gently opening our eyes and awakening into the present. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So the aim of today's talk and hopefully discussion, and I hope that the bits and parts of Dhamma that we discuss are sort of taken in a way that your elements of wisdom within are triggered in a manner that you look at the Dhamma analytically with wisdom. As the Buddha invites questions, let us question the presence of that Dhamma that is presented in a way of how do I apply this and bring this into my life, without which we will not be able to further ourselves and progress upon the path of practice. So during the time of question and answers, of discussion, please feel free to question any bit or part that is spoken of. And even if you would think that you do not agree with the point, we love it when these views and teachings are questioned, because I think that is the best possible way that we grow. As a teacher myself, and of course as people who are on the path, you and I, we all grow through that challenge, right? So please do not feel shy in any way. Please do not feel that you need to remain quiet, or that you are respecting me by not answering questions. I respect the fact that you do ask questions. So the topic of today, or today's topic of discussion, is the force to the Patipada, the practice. The practice varies from person to person. The Buddha acknowledges that there are people within the scope of Dhamma and Dhamma practice. Some people who are engaged with the mere practice of taking care of their families. There are some who engage with social work. There are some who engage with the learning of the Dhamma exclusively. There are some who learn the Dhamma and teach. There are some who learn the Dhamma, teach, and then meditate. There are some who do not teach, they learn the Dhamma, they do not teach but meditate. There are some who do not learn the Dhamma and just meditate. The Buddha acknowledges that all these persons will, when the intentions are right and wholesome, just like the little rivers all end up in the ocean, in the great ocean, they will all make their way progressively towards nirvana. And that is the most important point. Which means, regardless of what situation of life you or I might find ourselves within, we are able to, whether we are monastics or laity, whether we are single or with families, whatever situation of life that we find ourselves within, that we are able to practice the teachings in such a manner, bring the teachings, welcome the teachings, put the teachings into practice in such a manner that we can all progress towards the path of nirvana. This is most important, everyone. This is most important. What the Buddha says here is that Dhamma, in plain, simple language, the Dhamma can be enforced or practiced or embraced into each and every person's life, regardless of situation. Regardless of situation. Excuse me. Regardless of situation. In saying so, the Dhamma, the roots of Dhamma, can be watered, nurtured by each and every person. Why? Because regardless the situation that we might have in our lives, we all operate through mind and matter. Through mind, I'm using the word through, not because I forgot the use of the language. I'm using it with attention, through mind and matter. This essential part of our life, mind and matter, nama rupa, from birth to birth, we bring in this sense of, we cling on to a specific mind and matter. This, in the most basic teachings that we have within the Abhidhamma or even the Sutra, this consciousness is related to with a sense of, as a sense of energy. This energy arises and passes, arises and passes, arises and passes. How does it arise and pass? Imagine that right in front of you, that there is a wall. That right in front of you, there is a wall. Let the wall be 9 feet high, almost a normal sort of length of from the base to the ceiling of a house in the UK, right? Let us say 9 feet high. Now, we are not going to get up there onto the wall if there is no steps leading or aiding us. These steps that we would have are conditions. When the conditions are present, we are able to reach a specific state. If the conditions are not present, we are unable to do so. What are the conditions? The conditions become each and every, can become or can be each and everything that is within our environment or domain of attention. Domain of attention. Each and everything within our domain of attention. Now, this is quite interesting. Why? Remember the story of Venerable Mahamoggallana using his powers to find the end of the universe, right? He uses his meditative ability. He has his question, where does this end? So through his meditative abilities, he takes himself through the universe, trying to find an end to this material world. An end to this material world. The Buddha realizes that Venerable Mahamoggallana is doing this and appears wherever Venerable Mahamoggallana is, and he says, stop. You're not going to be able to do this, right? The universe is simply so vast, there is no end, right? Now, of course, we've heard this story, we've grown up with this story, right? However, let us take that story as a foundation for our talk today. What does this mean? The world around you forms the world that you know. As long as elements of the world are present, materiality, and the consciousness is present, there will be no time that there is nothing. There will be no time at which you experience nothing. Even in deep sleep, one would experience the Patisandhi consciousness stream as Bhavanga, as a subconscious stream of mind in process during the time that we are experiencing deep sleep as well. As long as the senses are active and the mind in its nature takes and grasps objects, we will always experience something. This experience never comes to an end. This experience can be drawn parallel to the universe, because what I experience, my world, my scope of intention, my realm of reality is all that I experience. I am unable to know and fully understand what you might be going through as an individual who is external to my world of reality, to my world of experience, because I simply cannot see through your senses. The Buddha, however, and many arahants who had the ability of mind reading was able to, of course, see this as a process of that mind reading process, where he saw what people were going through in their own shoes. This realm of experience that we are talking about, the Buddha says, this is the world you know. As long as we are within this five sensuous or a plane of existence which is dominated by the experience of the five senses, our world does not come to an end. Our world does not come to an end. It is continuous. It is a cycle. It is a sphere. And it is almost as if we are going around this circle again and again and again. And we know, unlike a square or a triangle or a rectangle, a circle does not have an end. A circle simply does not have an end. So we go round and round and round. The foe, the greatest of all foes, as the Buddha relates to the Dhamma practice, out of all the hindrances is what? Vicikiccha, skeptical doubt, right? Skeptical doubt is the greatest. What the Buddha says is, this is, if you let skeptical doubt progress, skeptical doubt makes a being weak to such an extent where that foundation towards nirvana, that footstep, that foundation step that you can step on to progress, that step is literally, it turns to almost like quicksand, like a puddle of mud, where you step into it and you simply sink. That is what Vichikicha does. Why? Because everything that you cognize, you start doubting. The foundation, which is a requirement for wisdom to be cultivated and developed, will now not be possible. Why? Doubt. You doubt everything. We see this self-doubt and the extent of the disaster it causes within youth and even adults, even today. Any case or scenario, when it comes to the traditional scope of supporting a person through healing, that is why the concept of God has been so effective for people to use as a foundation stone to come out of whatever depressive states that they are in, to let go of addictions. Why? Because now they doubt themselves. It's very difficult to take a step by their own self. Now what? We connect to a higher being who we do not question. So now this higher being, the notion of a higher being, has a deeper sense of power than we would ever be able to create within our own being. This is not an assumption. This is psychology. This is the way that we work. We listen to what our friend says, but not the mother who always tells us, who always advises us. We do not hear her words. But when a friend says the same thing, we hear. Why? Because we have grown numb to our parents nagging, because they've been nagging us for 15, 20, 25, 30 odd years. It's just we are numb to it. But when the friend says something, we hear. Now this, let us go deeper. Let us go deeper. Now we have our realm of experience, which is the world. This realm of experience is how we see and relate the world around us, whether the world is good, it's comfortable or not, everything, it's related on this. The problem, or this notion of cognizing the world, is always centralized. How is it centralized? Centralized in a manner where I am seeing, I am hearing, I am eating, I am smelling. It's centralized, you see, right? Even if you close your eyes for a moment, even when you meditated just a couple of minutes ago, you must have realized that it is almost as if a spherical ball within you that is almost sort of making the decisions of where the rays of metta is going from. This is identical to what? To self. The assumption of self is created on this, everyone. It manifests as a cylindrical, not cylinder, a spherical ball, where it is almost as if I am seeing, I'm hearing. It comes out of this shape. So we see this shape often in our meditation. This is self, the manifestation of self. How do we now, if you have any questions, write it down and please put it forward, yeah? How do we now, within this realm of experience, when self arises, this self can be manipulated and controlled. This self can be manipulated and controlled. If the people or the environment that is controlling the self is good, good for you. However, if the persons and the environment that is controlling this self is not so good, who are you? And that is what often happens. For example, we are known persons in the world. We are persons with resources and power. The people around us who see us as superiors, maybe, now knowing the resources and the power that we wield and hold, now they start propping up our egos to get stuff done. This is often something that we experience. You can do this. You can definitely make this happen. Most of the time, these suggestions are weak suggestions, poor suggestions, impulsive suggestions, suggestions which should not be even considered. But he said, you can do it. He said that I'm the only one who could do it. So now what happens? We see the most seasoned of businessmen, seasoned of entrepreneurs, seasoned, qualified people making the most foolish of decisions. Why? Self. Self was propped up. It put logic aside. Self overtook logic. Self overtook what? Your 20, 30 years of experience and training, it took over. When the conditions are bad, what happens now? You're in danger. To whatever practice that you might be having, you might be a mother, you might be a father, you might be a son, a child, you might be the breadwinner of a family, regardless of how many members of the family. You might be the head of an organization or a department, regardless. When certain things arises in your realm of experience, does this thing that has now arisen overwhelm you in such a manner where you now tend to make wrong decisions with it? Yes, of course. Why is that? Because that object has more power now rather than what you would logically be able to roll out or play out in mind. This self exists on the basis of experience. Experience as in with the 5 sensory doors. If the 5 sensory doors do not have or are not taken by way of self, then self loses its ability to arise. Is that clear? I'll repeat that again. Self, now there is no self. No. The Buddha says there is no self. And consciousness is an energy. Right? So if self is arising, if self seems present, it has to arise with that specific energy, isn't it? Moment to moment. Right? Moment to moment. There is no permanence here. It arises, it passes, arises again. So then, when self arises, or for self to arise, what is the main support that self has? The taking of an object as a part of self. How? I am seeing, I am experiencing. This tastes good. That I is there. Do you understand? The object that is being cognized or taken as an object is taken through the scope of me, myself, and I. This is done by your prefrontal lobe, right? This is an organic process. However, just because it is a biological process does not mean that does not mean that that is the most sort of ultimate thing. Remember, it is scientifically proven that a person who starts meditating for at least 30 minutes a day for an extent of 8 weeks shifts their primal cognitive base of experience from the prefrontal lobe to the 2 sides of the insula, which is just above the ear. When this happens, people connect to not past and future, which is very specific, not the past and future, because what is in the past and future? What I want, my grooming, my conditioning is in the past. What I want is in the future. Now, the mind shifts to real time, reality. What is of the moment? So what happens? We stop living in the past. We start realizing that the past can change. We stop living in the future and we bring down bring ourselves to what is required of the present. When kids, when we are young, we say, I want to do this, I want to do that. But in reality, what a problem that we see with ourselves is we are talkers. Most of the people that we see, they talk a lot. They want to do, they come from a good place. However, people get stuck in that future that they want, that reality slides away. Through action in real time, right at this moment, is what really truly counts. If you're dreaming of a position or place in the future for yourself, thinking this is what I want my future to be, good for you. Do work for it right now. And that is exactly what we do in our meditation, isn't it? We want, or we think about nirvana or mental development and cultivation. We start meditating and we realize thinking about the future is not going to help, because too many sankharas, phenomena are arising in the mind. So what do? We let go of those sankharas. Now you see, through the meditation, what did the meditation teach you? Let go of sankhara. How does sankhara arise, everyone? I want your questions, okay? I want your questions. I know that there might be questions. Please ask. How do these sankharas arise? Sankharas arise when you give energy, pay in energy, feed energy to an object. Because how? That is where self arises. If the object is not taken through me, myself, and I, then self has no foundation to arise. What happens? You become humble. Your samadhi increases. Your one-pointedness increases. Your ability to see reality increases. How does this happen, everyone? This happens because you are no longer deluded by what? Not by Shanti down the road. You're not deluded by yourself, your made-up ego. This is the most blinding factor in our practice. So part and core of this practice is the fact of what? Realizing the arising and passing of the 5 aggregates. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Materiality, sensations, perceptions, mental concomitants, and consciousness, right? Mind and matter. Both mind and matter arise and pass away. Now, there comes a problem. There comes a problem. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. True, I know it arises and passes, but I don't really feel like it. What is this? The familiar and the unfamiliar. The familiar and the unfamiliar is worthy of consideration because we are comfortable with what is familiar to us. We are uncomfortable with that which is unfamiliar to us. Now, when the unfamiliar arises, what happens? We think that the little now unfamiliar in our minds equates to instability because we don't know. Because self has been doing and we do things that we think brings us stability. The ignorance and the moha of it all is we do everything that brings us exactly the opposite, right? That's the delusionary part of it. We are doing things thinking that it's going to bring more stability, but that assumption is in itself wrong. So we assume that the unfamiliar is unstable because we've not been doing it. It's not something that self identifies with. So then we think, the Dhamma cannot be applied. The Dhamma cannot be brought into this. You can't bring Dhamma into everything. This is an issue where we then take a step back, simply take a step back, close your eyes, and think about what you're doing. Why is there a sense of disconnectedness? Why? Disconnectedness. And what am I feeling disconnected from? If you simply take a step back, you will realize for yourself, I am feeling disconnected from what is actually real. I am feeling disconnected from what is actually happening right here, right now. But what am I feeling connected with? My world. What is my world? However you would choose to define it with your experience, your children, your job, your titles, your degrees, your travel, all of these things, your world, however it is. But your world is subjected to reality. And now when your world turns upside down, your doctor calls you up and he tells you, you are terminally ill, you're going to die in 2 months. Or your child has been diagnosed at a very young age with a very critical illness. Or someone has swindled you out of money, you're unable to pay your mortgage. Or someone has broken into the house and stolen all of your jewelry. What has now happened? Your world as you thought it be has now been damaged. But in reality, right here, right now, in reality, we started this talk about 50 minutes ago. We have all aged by 50 minutes. We are never going to have that time back in our lives. We have now drawn closer to an inevitable end. There are things that you will never get back. This world, however, because it is like a circle, you will keep. This is not the end. This is not the first time that you have aged. This is not the first time that people have swindled you. This is not the first time that you have lost your reputations. This is not the first time that your children have worked against you. This is not the first time that you have worked against your children. This is not the first time at all for anything. However, the assumption, because we cannot remember all of that which has happened, we assume permanence in a world which is impermanent. The world, our realm of experience, is what we think the world is. And as long as these things go according to plan, I am all right. So what then happens? When the outside conditions come, when a tumor starts growing, when your wealth starts depreciating, when your presence in society is not seen, when you're not respected anymore, when other people are better at what you do than you do now your world starts crumbling down faster than the Twin Towers ever could. This is what the Buddha said. It is not to say these things Buddha said or not, it will happen, it is happening. Whether the Buddha says it or not, the Buddha brought it to light. And he says what? What does he say? How can we come out of this cycle, everyone? The first, now we think the world is a world, our world, my world. The first thing is unsubscribe from the idea that this world that you relate as yours is ultimate. Unsubscribe from that mailing list. That is not true. Your world is dependent. Your experience right here, we have 61 people in this room with us today. If depending on me, it is 4:30, 5:30 in Sri Lanka at the moment, 11 o'clock in the morning, we started here in the UK. And for those of you who are joining from America, it's very early in the morning for you guys, right? Now you're starting your day for us in the UK. If I am to say something really rude, I could possibly ruin all of your days. Really rude. Now see, the object, now what that is an assumption. That is not an assumption. That shows more about me than you, because I said it, right? However, now see the power that I hold, everyone. Why is that? That doesn't just happen with me here. That happens with each and every person in your world. That happens with each and every time that your doctor tells you that you're ill in some sort of way. That happens with every single object that arises in your realm of experience. Why? Because we give the object the power. Why do we give the object the power? Because we see and understand the object through self. First of all, realize that this is not the only perception or the only world. That is most important. That is most important. Unsubscribing from that notion that this world of experience that you have is ultimate. Now what happens? The mind opens up. The mind opens up to what? Potential. The mind opens itself up to what? Sankharas that are beyond you. Formations, phenomena that is beyond you. The mind opens up to now pursuing, exploring states of mind that you never had before. The mind simply opens up. A very powerful part of a Buddhist monk's initiation into monkhood, from being a layperson into monkhood, the most powerful aspect of becoming a monk is what? A shaved head, the robes, and a new identity. That identity, everyone, it's weird. I don't know how to, because you realize almost instantaneously with the whole ceremony and all of that, you realize, I mean, yesterday I was this person who would be known as this person, and today I am this person, right? I'm ordained, I'm a monk, this is my name, right? I'm wearing different clothes and all of that. And you realize when that initiation has happened with that new identity, your mind, it doesn't even realize, or you don't realize, your thinking and behaving and the way that you're working now entirely changes just overnight. That new sense of identity that has now been given to you, that initiation into the Sangha. This can be done for each and every one of you. This new sense of identity. How does it happen? You unsubscribe. What does a monk do in the process of initiation? He unsubscribes from the lay way of life and initiates him towards the clergy way of life. What is the clergy way of life? Entirely letting go of past and absorbing oneself into the practice within this present. You can all do it, everyone. Each and every one of you has the power to accomplish that. How? Unsubscribing from the world that you think is ultimate. In this cycle of rebirth and death, in this repetitive cycle, if we have done it so many times, what becomes important? Is it the thing that you've done 1 billion, 1 trillion times? Or is it now this way, this unique thing that you have never done before, that you are now trying to start doing? What becomes important? Obviously, even with demand and supply, not the thing that you've done 1 trillion times. It's that thing which is of a unique essence and element. Absorb yourself in the practice, this letting go, this realizing that this cycle being continuous in the way that it works, relating yourself into a position where you are now able to let go of that way and mechanism of being, and realizing for yourself that I do not need to pursue self in everything to live in this world. Do you understand what I'm saying? I do not need to see myself in a flower or take the flower as me, myself, and I to enjoy the flower. I do not need to attach myself and think that I'm going to fall into the grave that they fall into as well through attachment over a child or a husband or a wife or a partner, to relate to the idea or to enjoy family. Do you understand what I mean? I do not need to sacrifice my whole entirety. I do not need to cry and wail over loss to actually feel loss. We do not need to do all of that. But the framework that we've been conditioned by makes it feel as if I do not attach myself in such a manner, this is not love. This is not caring. This is not compassion. The Buddha, I'm guessing we all agree that the Buddha, with his Mahakaruna, surpassed all of the karuna that we could possibly have in our life. But everyone, if you were to die, would the Buddha jump into the grave that your body is buried? No. What nonsense. If you were to pass, would the Buddha be crying and wailing? No. Why? Because he knows you're not gone. Your energy is now continuing somewhere else, just as it did 1 billion times before. And the karmas that you have done determines where you're going. We were here in this experience. This whole these 56 people that are with us today, this collaboration of people who are joined with us today, we might never have again for the rest of samsara, but we will be doing similar things in samsara. This unique experience right here with this exact amount of people. Unsubscribing from the idea that this is ultimate, that my scope of experience is all there is, subscribing to such a notion is an absolute fallacy. An absolute fallacy. When the mind opens up now, what happens? When the mind opens up, you grow far more stronger than you ever are, that you ever were. To such an extent where, for example, where did Paritta start? Pirit chanting. Pirit chanting started as a way that monks were accomplished. In simply focusing on a person and their illness, the monks were able to share such blessing and such powerful vibrations with these people who were ill that the ailments would just simply subside. What was that? That was the power of the mind. That was the power of the mind. Now, we have gone into a concept of religion so strongly that the mind is not given any power. It is all physicality. These cultures, the traditions that we do, it has come down to things that we do with the body. Remember, we are not beings who are just with the body. We are beings with a mind and a body. When the mind is or excels, the body, you're not working with just the body. If you are doing a job that you absolutely hate, what you will find yourself doing is working with just the body. When the mind is in the present moment with gratitude, with a sense of presence, now you will find that you are able to do that task far better. Why? Mind and body. Remember, this mind and body is what this is. Crying over one part of it or wailing over one part of it is not going to do anything. It's mind and body and mind. When the body is no more, the mind continues with another body. This is a cycle that we are in. Thinking that this mind and body is the only thing that there is the fallacy. Subscribing to the idea, thinking that these 5 sensory perceptions, that is philosophy. I look at a tree, the way that I would see a tree and the way that the person behind the tree would see the tree is two different things. When I realize that my position of observance is not the only position, that the other person is seeing the tree from the other side, that is when I stop clinging on to the tree from my visual of what the tree is. If I was to think that this tree is only this, I mean, how foolish of me. How simply foolish of me. That is avidya. That is avidya. So what can we do right now? When an object appears, now it is very important, there is this question, I think, within, for some reason, I only hear the Sri Lankans discussing this for some reason. I don't understand why this is so important. But the fact of whether you can attain nirvana without meditating, it's so important to the Sri Lankans for some reason. They're really trying to find a way around. My meditation is a bit too uncomfortable. So really trying to find a way around this. But really, everyone, meditation is, I believe, and I truly believe, it is the best possible thing that you could ever do to yourself. Do for yourself. Because in the process of meditation, you truly begin to realize the cycle, the wheel that you have found yourself in or stuck in. In realizing what this cycle is, you now begin to grow a sense of wisdom, strength, to now distance yourself or to remove yourself from that cycle. This only appears in meditation, because even with the singular, even with just learning Dhamma and without the meditative aspect, some people's, their minds, they work in such a faceted way that you get caught up with the Dhamma also so much that you do not see where that little opening is, where you can peel it off. That becomes so much clearer when you start meditating. Your emotions and the way that you emotionally attract yourself to different other things, they fade away. Your ego is suppressed. Your ego is suppressed. When the ego is suppressed, the self-notion is suppressed. When the self-notion is suppressed, all of the things that worry you in your life are suppressed. You gain power over the life that you have right now. A person who is not a meditator, why did the Buddha say Moga Purisa? Such a strong word for an all-compassionate being to use. Moga Purisa. Why? Because look, open your eyes. Look at what is happening around you. Why is it that you cannot see? Because why? The hindrances are too prevalent. Meditate and you will realize that. You will realize that all the things that you're frustrated about in your life, all the anger that you have, all the things that you're trying to do to distract yourself from reality, all the things that you're trying to do to keep yourself from embracing what is happening, all of that is just simply hindrance. Hindrance. And we embrace it so closely, just like going to bed with a snake. That is what we do. That is exactly what we are doing. And it's even worse because we know the Dhamma. It's even worse because we've listened. I mean, regardless of what religion that you are in, if you're in Sri Lanka, if you're in Thailand, if you're in Burma, you know a bit of Dhamma, regardless. And knowing such things, we still engage. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we start using Dhamma in such a way. Now, for example, in Sri Lanka, for Buddhism in Sri Lanka, it's not going through a good time, right? It's not going through a good time. And, if you track yourself back, In Sri Lankan Buddhism, in history, within the Sangha, it is said that the decline of Sri Lankan Buddhism began when the monks started welcoming alms to the temple, right? Because the monks stopped going on Pindapata, right? Welcoming alms to the temple. But where did, go back a little bit more, where did that problem begin? Because when monks were going about in the Anuradhapura age and so on, when the monks got up early in the morning and when they were going on Pindapata, some of the villagers were sleeping, right? And when the villagers were sleeping, the other household, when they got up and then when they opened their doors and came out, villagers, right? The people who served the dana would say, "Ah, Hamdru Ava, Swamin Hansa Vadiya, Okolo Nidhi, Ai Pindapata Bedu Natte," right? They would say, right? They would say, "Why were you sleeping?" The monk came and he left. He was standing in front, he left. And they made this into an issue, right? So it's embarrassing. It was something that was seen as embarrassing for a household. So the lay people went to the Aranya, told the monks, "Don't come on Pindapata, we will bring food to the temple." So those days, the monks were meditating. So obviously, because the monks would have thought, if they're meditating monks, because I mean, this has happened to us as well in the Aranyas, obviously it's more convenient if we don't have to go for alms, right? We could eat and then meditate, right? More time for meditation. What began like that went into a whole system of the alms coming into. Then dana shalas have to be made now. Then the temples have to be made now. Then it has to be easy for the lay people with arthritis and all of these issues to walk up the staircases and all of these things. So the staircases has to be done with railings. And now see, the development of the Pannasala started. Pannasala. What is a Pannasala? Pannasala is a roof, a pansala. Pansala has then Pannasala. The roof is leaves. So you can think about how simple it was. And in the Vinay, it says a Pannasala should be able to be established within 7 days, right? So if any lodging can be established within 7 days, that is what a Pannasala is. A Pannasala is a Pansala, right? Now you see, now realizing, now maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But the depreciation started with both communities. Because of both communities. Thinking that one condition can overpower the other is a mistake. We are all in a network of life. Adverting or realizing this process of condition, hetu phala dharma, comes down to our ability of attention and awareness. And the Buddha's core principle and teachings, everyone, is what? Vipassana, samadhi. That is what is the core. So I would encourage each and every person here, if you're not already meditating, try to start your meditation processes and practices. If you realize that a certain thing has upset you in a certain way, take a step back. Do not give that object energy. Because just imagine if you die at that right moment that you're upset over something, just imagine the horror. Done. All of your kusalas, all of your shraddha down the drain. If it's hatred, you straight away arise in the burning realms of hell. If it is lust, pretas, animals, everything done. The good life that you committed to living, gone down the drain. Why? Next life. You're in the hellish realms. Why? For one moment of those, because this neighbor has put out the garbage when the garbage man has not come that day. What nonsense. Or your child is doing something very foolish. This is the danger. That meditation supports you in not getting entangled in solving these different issues that arise, which is of absolute importance now. Now we are done with our time. So if you have any other questions, you can ask those questions. I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Yes, Professor.
No, thank you, Bhante. I thought we would ask Venerable Holandayananda to make a comment, if not a question, Bhante. I'm sure Bhante is...
Well, of course, as the Venerable mentioned, that he feels a little bit shy and nervous when he sees me among the audience, because actually he was, as a schoolboy, coming to our Sunday classes here at Pagoda. And now, of course, he has surpassed me in his English and his knowledge of the Dhamma by studying in Myanmar for so long that I can't really give any kind of, comment of any kind of substance. So I would just congratulate him and wish him all the best on the path to Nirvana, basically. And all the best in the preaching of the practical Dhamma that you are to ordinary people.
Thank you, Bhante. So, thank you, Bhante. With your permission, we'll go on to some questions. Mahendra, yes?
Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to exercise a bit of Vichikicha, because it is Vichikicha which makes me go to a doctor when I'm not well, rather than try a talisman or a yantare. So I want your views on when is Vichikicha good, when it is bad, what are the limits? That's one. Other one is the problem I always have is when I hear the statement, you all can achieve this, you all can do this, you all need to do this. At the same time, say there is no you. Now, I am completely, this is my view, in agreement with that there is no permanent self, that we are completely changing every millisecond of time, that I'm not the same person I was a few seconds, so I can understand that. But within my conscious stream, isn't there something unique within me which is different from you and different from the other 50 people who are listening? In other words, isn't there a continuous stream of consciousness, which is, if you like, what I'm changing, or what I call myself changing, which is different from the stream of consciousness of somebody else? So it's like saying there's no soul, but there is a changing soul, or there is no self, but a changing self. So is there something which is particular to one stream of consciousness, which is changing from one life to the other and so on? Without saying there's no self, why not say there's no permanent self, there's an evolving sense of self with an underlying stream of consciousness. So that is my problem.
Okay, so two very big problems. You're a man of problems. Right. The first one is Vichikicha. When is it advisable to have a bit of Vichikicha? Never. Because Vichikicha and the way that you are understanding Vichikicha and the questioning element are two very different things. Right? Vichikicha is an unwholesome consciousness. It is within the 12 consciousnesses that are categorized as unwholesome. Vichikicha dissolves any foundation for stability in life by spreading doubt. Right? Now, if you are ill and you want to go see a doctor, you let us say, for the sake of linguistics, you are having a doubt with regards to, am I healthy? Right? A certain question arises. This question need not be based on Vichikiccha. Do you understand? How can this question arise? This question can arise as a upekha sagata consciousness, a consciousness with equanimity. Am I sick? You don't know whether you are or whether you're not. Do I have something serious? You don't know. So what happens? You question yourself by way of upekha sagata consciousness, now thinking, am I sick? Do I need to go see a doctor? You understand? This will fall under a beautiful consciousness with upekha. Whether now, if you're considering information and facts, then whether it be jnana sampayutta or vipayutta, that will be determined. It need not be vichikiccha. Where does vichikiccha, or what does vichikiccha look like? Skeptical doubt look like? Where you have a personality where you doubt everything. Now, for example, when people think that they have to suffer, they don't believe that they have the capacity to bring about beauty in their life, right? Which is one of the leading causes why people find it very difficult to escape or come out of depressive mentalities and states, right? What has happened there? The mind does not believe, or the mind doubts in the mind's ability to be happy. Nothing good comes out of vichikiccha, just as nothing good comes out of restlessness, uddacha. Is that clear? Does that make sense? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Can't read it right. I'm still not sure, because take the illness example. I may have symptoms and signs which are recognized as indicating that I'm not ill, that I am ill. That's the first stage of my thinking. So then I decide, yes, I am ill. And the next stage is, how do I get rid of this illness? Then I look at the evidence and say, somebody says, look, go and try a yantare, and this is the answer for your problem. Other person say, no, go and see a doctor. So I look at the two types of things I could do, and I look at the evidence for the use of the yantara, and I doubt it very much. I exercise vichikiccha now in my simple way of thinking. I doubt that this works. And therefore I throw it out and I accept the Western one. Now, if I didn't have doubt, how could I have chosen the right way to approach it?
Okay.
It's doubt that made me think.
Okay. So here it falls under now doubt, vichikiccha. The earlier phrase that you had in being able to choose between two paths, that does not arise from doubt. Because the mind of doubt works in an entirely different way, right? Moha mula chittas, right, usually arise together with tanha, dosa, hatred, and it can arise alone, eka hetuka. It can be dvihetuka or eka hetuka. When vichikiccha arises, you will not have this clear, streamlined way of thinking as you explained first. That will not be there, right? When you have doubt, what you will have is either it will be attached to tanha or it will be attached to dosa. So what happens in most cases? What happens? You are simply even annoyed or irritated by the suggestion of the yantare, right? So what happens? You go deeper into the yantare and you forget what is most important. What is important? Your health and recuperation, right? That now the hatred increases with doubt, with vichikiccha. That is why vichikiccha, the process of vichikiccha is not streamlined like that. It is a very abrupt process, right? The ability to make decisions does not come with doubt there, what happens is doubt is aimed towards the object, not the scenario. Not the scenario. If you have doubt with regards to a scenario and you're thinking of another possibly better option, that is possibly not doubt there, because you have clarity of mind. Remember, this is moha mula chitta. More here. It blinds us. It deludes us.
Skeptical.
When you have moha, it is rather difficult to be able to see clearly, right? To see clearly, right? If I may go into the second question, just because of time, right? The second question, which is, why do we say that there is no self rather than a changing self, right? Was that the question? Yeah. Because even in a changing self, there is the potential of a subtle self existing. When we break apart the components that goes into the arising of a consciousness, memory is one of those components or features of consciousness, memory. The ability of these streams of consciousness to be related in such a manner where past experiences that have been taken by the consciousness are streamlined, where this creates memory. Memory is what makes us think that I went through this. It is not the consciousness itself, it's memory, which is a feature of that consciousness. If we are insinuating even in a subtle sense that consciousness is a sense of a changing self, that assumption of an even bit of self existing is dangerous. It's dangerous. Why? It's dangerous to nirvana. Because self with self, or taking or commitment to self, one will never be able to attain nirvana. It will be a very arduous and difficult process. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Thank you very much. I don't want to take too much time. I'm sure there will be other people who are, but you certainly made me think a lot, and I thank you very much.
Good, good. Any other questions?
Bhante?
Yes.
At the beginning, you said doubt is bad, going towards Nibbana. What about restlessness? Is it not equally bad?
Restlessness is not as bad as doubt. Why? Because doubt is what increases and increases and increases to now a stage which is known as niyata mithya drushtika. Right? That arises from that skeptical doubt. Restlessness might make a person restless and indecisive in so many ways, but does not lead to a stage where you become permanently within that stage. You can have restlessness and you might do very foolish things because of that restlessness and make very bad decisions, but you're never going to be stuck in a state where you cannot be saved even by 1,000 Pacceka Buddhas and Buddhas preaching to you. That is what happens when doubt manifests and increases to such a level where you start doubting the Dhamma to such an extent, doubting reality to such an extent, consciousness, Patipada, the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Noble Path, dependent origination, conditionality. You start doubting these very components of reality and Dhamma to such an extent where you will never be able to exit samsara. Why? The only way that we can exit samsara known to man is Dhamma. When you start doubting that very Dhamma, what else? How else are you going to exist? So then the Buddha says, now you become a pillar of samsara itself. You will never gain exit, which is a very, very sad situation to be in, I think.
Because they are both delusion rooted, I thought they are equally bad. That's why I asked that question, Bhante.
Sure. But what it accomplishes is different in terms of, because doubt, it is like you start, let us say you start with doubting a certain family member. Starting with that family member, one family member, you start doubting everyone in your family. Then you start doubting your servants and everyone of your workforce. Now, who are you going to trust? Restlessness just puts you off. You can't settle upon one object. You're changing your mind all the time. That is restlessness. Yeah. What it accomplishes is two different things. Although it's a moha mula chitta. Yes, Del.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, Bhante, I don't know, correct me. My understanding about skeptical doubt, that's the doubt in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, right?
Yeah.
The doubt that is it going to rain or not? Am I sick or not? Should I go for this one? That's the way you investigate. And the Buddha has always said the second factor of enlightenment is to investigation. So that is the way you are thinking, would it be this or should I be going here? But skeptical doubt is about the Buddha, right? So that is a fundamental difference between investigating something and doubt. And the skeptical doubt is something that if you don't believe that there was Buddha, that there's life after Buddha, the way it really is, about Yonisma, that is the thing that causes you to go to the Niyata Mahana, the Dustika. Thank you, Bhante.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Dil. Dil is one of the followers of our Abhidhamma class as well. In every consciousness, that is in 78 out of 90, out of 89 consciousnesses, we have something called determination as a Chetasika. Determination is what? Determination is what allows us to make decisions. And then there's Adimokha as well, the decision-making process, right? Decisions are then made in such a manner, not through doubt. Not through doubt, clearly not through doubt, because with doubt, you can't make decisions. Right? That is what doubt is, skeptical doubt. Thank you, Dale, for bringing that up. So Samantha is saying, which is on a private message. Okay, before Samantha, let's go to Jaika. Sorry, Samantha. After that, we'll come to Samantha. Dear Bhante, I doubt that Buddha or Arhat were able to mind read. I think they had a gift of intuition. No. Actually, early stages of meditation, you can read the minds of people that are around you as well. So when we are meditating together, right, in halls or around a chaitya or something like that, and there are other monks doing whatever, we will exactly know what they're thinking around us. This is not the power of intuition, which can be a power of intuition, but not the power of intuition. This is what happens when your mind excels far beyond your own body, where then you start tracing and coming to know of other people's minds as well. It is a very much a thing that very much happens when you sort of excel in a meditation practice, and not a very deep state as well. It's not a very deep state. It's a very basic stage, right? Now, Samantha, to you. Bhante, if all conditioned phenomena is based on cause and effect, dependent origination, then can we see non-self? We gave no control. Okay, Samantha, wonderful question. Bhante, if all conditioned phenomena is based on cause and effect, then can we see non-self? We gave no control. Exactly, Samantha. That is exactly why self-awareness and meditation plays such a prominent role and part in our meditation practice and excelling in the path. Because what we start doing is just like the onion, the layers of an onion, as we sort of pull it back and remove these facades, right? That is exactly what happens as the ego centers are suppressed, as our hindrances are suppressed. The energy that goes into the hard knit holding of self is slowly or gently, sort of that embrace or that hold is loosened, now giving us the ability to grow, nurture a wholesome state of Dhamma. Now, for any Buddhist, we find, some will start meditating with Vipassana and all of that, and then some others would start going into Pinkam, right? Merit making. Merit making is also something that falls right into self and the lack of self, right? Merit making is good to do good, right? However, merit making for good karma, right, is not very Dhammic. It's actually very, very much Hindu Brahmanic, right? It's not Dhamma, right? Merit making for the doing of, for the cultivating of good. However, merit making for the purpose of attaining nirvana will suppress the hindrances, will suppress self, will suppress those attributes that go into strengthening self. This is where Chetanaham Bhikkave Kammang Vadami and karmas lead to nirvana now become important. Karmas that leads to the process of the attainment of nirvana, right? Especially becoming a monk or having the ability and strength to bring about a life that is simple, to not get engaged with other things, all of these things. There's a lot of conditions that is built by the karma. Right? That is built by the karma. That is where, for example, a person can have a lot of things in their lives, wealth, power, all of these things. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is good, right? Because when you have these things, you get entirely so caught up and busy with that life, with upholding all of those things, that you do not have time for Dhamma whatsoever. And we know this. We know this for ourselves. So the strength and ability to take a step back, where does that strength and ability come? Through karma. Karma is action of the present. Yeah, that is how conditioned things leads to the unconditioned Samantha. Any other questions? Sujata, you have unmuted the mic.
Yes, Bhante, lovely. Listen to you for a long, long time. I just have a small question. Bhante, you said about wailing and crying when somebody dies.
Yeah.
Wailing and crying. It's a common thing, isn't it? Anybody, I mean, we do it.
Absolutely.
Is it wrong in that? I wonder.
No, it's not that it is wrong, right? It is surely, definitely not. However, the wailing and crying, I was speaking from a sense of, how we hold on to pain and anguish in our life, right?
Yeah.
And when we realize Dhamma, the ability to realize that we are in a process. Ara Buduhamduru kiyanne me ara ambalamakata avilla akke malli. We call people sister, brother, father, mother. And then after the Pinkama finishes, we just it's so true. It's so true. And what surprises me about Ian Stevenson's research about rebirth is the fact that none of those, Ian Stevenson is the professor who did the research on the rebirth. In any Sujata, in all of those stories, those families, right, where the kids remember and professor takes them to later and they meet, and none of those families say keep this child and go. None of those families give their generational wealth to those children.
Yeah.
Then Aduanang, Alunanang, could
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yes, Bhante, thank you. Yeah.
What I was speaking of was a sense of, from that sense of a low-quoted side. Right? There's nothing wrong in it. However, when we cry, it's dosa mula chitta.
Yes.
Anada Marunot, Apaima Tama.
Oh. Actually, but
So on the Abhidhamma ground, we can say, yes, it is wrong, because we know some people, yes, they cry they go through a period of mourning and they come out. Some people are unable to let go.
yeah.
Their whole life, they commit to this mourning, which will not bring any good. But yeah.
Thank you very much, Bhante. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I just had to ask you again. If I understood you correctly, then what you are saying is that Vichikicha refers to doubt of the truth of the Dhamma. Am I right?
Okay. That needs to be so. The truth of the Dhamma here, Dhamma is reality. Right? So Vichikicha is defined as, okay, 4 noble truths, 8-fold noble path, dependent origination, 24 conditionalities, past lives, past lives and future lives, karma and karma's result, right? So doubt on any of these paths, what it does, it spreads. That's what doubt does. It spreads, right? You start doubting the Buddha, then you doubt the you start doubting the Sangha, and then you doubt the Dhamma. Then when you doubt the Dhamma, you doubt the Buddha, right? It spreads, right? You start doubting the cessation of suffering, you doubt suffering and all of that. You see, it has that spreading notion. That is what it's referring to. Because let's take away the religious aspect of it, right? What the Buddha spoke of was, or the Buddha's intention was not to establish a religious following. And I think I don't need to explain that, right? What the Buddha was preaching was about reality. And he found a way out of that cycle of rebirth and death. ඒ පදනම අපි සැක කරන්න පටන් ගත්තොත් වෙන මොන පදනමක්ද අපිට තියෙන මේ සංසාරයෙන් එතර වෙන්නට? Which
yes,
other?
Yeah.
I was a born Catholic, right? I have read through the Bible. I have been a staunch follower of the Bible. I did not find or read anything that I know within the Tripitaka now, having read the Tripitaka and going into the deep parts of the Dhamma now. I always tell the people that who my Abhidhamma class and all of that, it's so awing and inspiring and also baffling that all of this information, without telescopes, without machinery, without all of these things, the Buddha to preach this depth 2,600 years ago is just absolutely just a marvel. Just a marvel.
Yes, Bhante, I partly asked you that question because I had some very devout Christian friends who are some of the best people I ever known, who say that it's their faith, which other people say blind faith, it's their faith that has given them. And they go to the extent of saying that I have experienced Jesus Christ, I have spoken to the Lord and so on. Now all this might be mythology for some, but these people genuinely believe that. So absolutely. That faith is, how do you regard the faith of such people?
Well, why? Exactly. Let's come down to the core of the Buddhist teachings. Respect people for what they believe. That is the what? Respect people for what they believe. The Buddha did that. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I thought, actually one of my personal experiences where, when I was reading the Dhamma, to come across a story where the Buddha says to the Brahmin supporter, the follower, you can become a Buddhist or my follower if you are to continue supporting the Brahmins. For me, when I read that, coming from the Catholic Church, for me, that was like, wow. Because this was, at the time, I remember I had just become or started going into the Buddhist classes and all of that. and all my Catholic teachers were trying to convert me back, right? And it was such a turnoff. I was like, it was such a turnoff because they were trying to convert me back. And when I read this in the Dhamma, I was like, yes. At that time, I was like, yes. Why? Because of that respect. And I agree with you. Some, at the Dhamma Center, one of the people that helped us a lot was a Muslim man. Right? We have Hindu practitioners on the board of trustees. We have atheists on the board of trustees. It's not about any of that. It's about us coming together for one reason, getting rid of suffering. And that is what the Buddha did. That's it. Us going into the fact of, what do you believe? Who brought you up? Were you raised by bulls and animals? Animals are not that bad. Like what? That is the furthest thing from the Dhamma. If we are even to sort of point the hand and say, you have blind faith, how horrible. This is the faith that a person reminds himself of. When I was a Catholic, I couldn't sleep without the Bible under my pillow, right? That Bible allowed me to have a good night's sleep. If the Bible was not under my pillow, I could not sleep. So who is anyone to tell me you have blind faith? It's not because of you I'm going to sleep, it's because of this Bible. Respect that. That's,
Thank you very much. Sorry to have taken so much time, Honorary.
No, it's fine.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm sorry to have taken so much of time.
No.
But
that was wonderful, Bhante. Sorry, go on, Bhante, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just going to hand over to you.
Right, Bhante. Thank you ever so much. And that discussion finally was mostly on doubt and investigation. Can I just ask Bhante the way I see it? I know it is, there's nothing like, there's no contradictions anywhere in the Dhamma. That is amazing. But seeing things when you're investigating, even whatever, seeing through muddy water, as it were, if your mind is, isn't that Vicikiccha? So you won't see it properly. It's all muddied. And that's, am I right?
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Now, shall we then, we have had a very wonderful Dhamma talk, which created a lot of insight, a lot of to think and investigate into our own thoughts, where of course self, I, me, and my is there at the bottom of any type of hurt that we feel. That's because if you go to analyze and break it down, that I, had it not been there, there wouldn't have been any issue. So, and that's where I think if we go on following the path, the way Bhante so convincingly showed us and so powerfully came out with it. Thank you very much, Bhante. And we wish Bhante a good health and success in all your spiritual aspirations and endeavors. It was a very good discussion as well. So thank you for all those who actively participated and gave those questions and also helped with the answers. Bhante, could we end then with Anumodana, with the sharing of merits with the departed and the Devas, and with blessings, Bhante, and all blessings to you, Bhante. It was really a very wonderful session. Much merit, Bhante.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to the audience, to the participants of the Servants of the Buddha. The Servants of the Buddha is an organization that I wholeheartedly respect so much for the commitment that the trustees, the board of trustees, the directors, and also the participants has to the understanding and the evaluation of the Dhamma and its way of application into daily life. I think in these days, dharma within the Dhamma, and any sort of supramundane cultivation development, the most important part where it becomes supramundane is prajna, the prajna chetasika. The prajna chetasika is not sadhu, 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 right? The prajna chetasika is not, the Buddha said this, so I believe it. No, that is not prajna. The prajna chetasika is the ability to dissect, question, and to go deep into the root and the proficiency of that piece of Dhamma to such an extent of understanding, to raise such an extent of understanding where that piece changes us. That piece of Dhamma changes us, literally changes the way the mind and our personality is. That prajna does not come with just listening, because I think as a teacher, now being in the West, I realize, and something that I realize with the Sri Lankans specifically, because I work with so many Sri Lankans, is most of you have got used to thinking of the Dhamma like a spa treatment. The Dhamma is not a spa treatment. The Dhamma is not there to give you a soothing evening just because you had a tough day at work. Please do not put the Dhamma to such a poor level. The Dhamma is something that I and so many other monks and practitioners have committed our life to. And just the assumption that the Dhamma talk has to be something that is calming and soothing or entertaining is absolutely embarrassing, and even sometimes at moments of lack of yonsmanasikara can be quite annoying as well, right? Can be quite annoying as well. The Dhamma is not a spa treatment, and that is why I guess, you know, certain speakers have been given such relevancy because of their ability to, you know, make you laugh and gag on jokes and all of that. This is not Dhamma. You know, let us embellish and nurture that aspect of prajna in our Dhamma pursuance, allowing the most wholesome of intentions to be the root of that development that we so seek. So thus, with all of you that are participating today, those of you who will listen to the recording later on as well, if any one of you are going through any sort of difficulty or challenge in your life, by the power of all of these merits and wholesome energies that we have cultivated and developed through the sharing of Dhamma, the thinking of Dhamma, and the organizing and all of that to do with the Dhamma and the sharing of wholesome Dhamma, may all those illnesses, sufferings come to an end. May you all have the energy of mind and body to pursue the Dhamma deeper and deeper, to let go of things that are most hard and difficult to let go of, to make sacrifices in order that you let go of the petty, small pleasures for the greater pleasures of the supramundane world. And thus, let us share merit with all those beings who are expecting this merit or would rejoice in this merit. May all those beings, known and unknown, share in all of this energy. May all of these wholesome blessings bring blessing into their lives, and may they too be able to rejoice and marvel at the wonders of the teachings of the Buddha. Edam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Akasattha ca bummattha devānaga mahindika. Punyantang anumodetva chiran rakthantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devānaga mahindika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu desanang Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga indika Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu mang paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May all of you be well and happy.
Sadhu, sadhu, Bhante, and all the best to you too. I will then end this meeting, which was a wonderful meeting, Bhante. And I mean, the time difference makes it very awkward with Bhante's schedule. We much appreciate all that, Bhante, for having taken all the trouble to be with us. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.